Okay, we are just days away from the Grey Cup here in Winnipeg. We need a big co-host, someone that's going to put the show over the top. Do you know anyone?
Well, Mike, I've done some hosting before.
Really?
Mike, if you need a co-host, I can be your number 2.
Won't you be my number 2?
Me and number 1 are through.
There won't be much to do.
Just smile when I feel blue.
All right, let's do it. You ready?
Actually, 1 second. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Everything all right?
I think it's number 2.
This is Across the West here on Grey Cup Game Plan, and this week I have the pleasure to be joined by the one and only Jay Onrait. Jay, how's it going?
Great, Mike. How are you?
Not too bad. We're very happy you joined us today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell us about the book. It's number 2.
Yeah, number 2. It's obviously a reference to it being the second book I've written, and
Really?
the fact that I have a lot of poop stories in it. So that's basically why I called it that. I'm not good at titles.
Right. What we do on each of these shows is we go out to the various Shaw TV markets. So we're going to go out to Saskatoon now and join Simon Hyatt. Simon. Thank you very much to Simon and Dave in Saskatoon. So they mentioned Saskatchewan, obviously. I'm guessing you have a few Rough Riders experiences. Their fans are insane.
Yeah, they are. And what's interesting about the fact that they were in Saskatoon, when I was working in Saskatoon back in the late 90s, I wouldn't say that the passion for the Riders existed in that city quite to the level it does now.
Really?
What I mean by that is there was still a little bit of that separation between Saskatoon and Regina, and I thought the Riders felt more like a Regina team at the time. Now, when I go back there, and I'll be there this month in Saskatoon, it's a totally different city. They're as passionate about the Riders, maybe not quite as much as Regina is, because obviously that city is crazy for them, but they're really passionate about that team, to the point where I've often floated the idea that perhaps there should be 2 CFL teams in Saskatchewan. You know, that's how much that province in general just loves the Canadian Football League.
And they travel well, too.
Yeah.
Even if they're not in the big game, there's always Riders fans.
Absolutely. And, you know, season ticket holders to Mosaic Stadium are from all over the province. And that goes on for years and years. If you're lucky enough to nab season tickets at Mosaic Stadium, you're never going to give them up. So if you have to drive 3 hours from wherever, if you have to drive an hour from Fort Capel or 3 hours from the Battlefords or whatever, you're going to do it. So the fact that they're building new stadiums in this league, the fact that the Prairies are getting great new stadiums, I think it bodes really well for the long-term success of the Canadian Football League. It's a nice thing to see.
We can't forget about the Bombers. We're sitting here in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Bombers fans have been through a lot. It's been like 27 years since they won a Grey Cup, but that loyalty is still there, right? They've got the Banjo Bowl every year. They got the Beer Snake. It's
funny, I used to, with my old Big Breakfast Winnipeg co-host John Youngberg, we were on-field hosts, I guess you could say, back at the old Winnipeg Stadium for the Blue Bombers, and it was just the best gig I ever had in my life. I don't even think we were paid for it, but it was great. It was so much fun to just be down on the field level with those passionate Bomber fans and hang out with the cheerleaders. That was pretty good too, and just sort of be immersed in it. See what it was like down from field level. I haven't had a chance to go to the new stadium yet. I would love to, but I can't wait for the Grey Cup this year. It's going to be awesome.
You were born in Alberta.
Yeah.
Were you always an Eskimos guy? Or?
Yeah, and it's funny, I was an Eskimos guy because we were about an hour north of Edmonton, and when I was growing up, early 80s, it was the prime Warren Moon years. So Warren Moon was leading that incredible group of Edmonton Eskimo teams to 5 straight Grey Cups. Just one of the greatest teams in the history of the Canadian Football League. So obviously that fueled our passion for that team. And then later when I went to University of Alberta for 2 years, which I call the lost years because I didn't accomplish anything and I wasted a lot of my parents' money. I was able to, for $99, this is incredible, $99, get season tickets for the Eskimos.
Wow.
And that included all regular season games, a preseason game, and a playoff game. And I sat 10 rows up on the 20-yard line.
Wow.
I don't think that deal exists anymore.
Times have changed. Yeah.
But it was incredible.
Yeah.
And so, we'd all go. I mean, even though we were starving students, we could afford $100 for, all those CFL games. So I've always grown up loving the sport. I just love the passion of the fans. And especially, we're talking about all these markets on the prairies. I'd love to see Atlantic Canada get a team. And I sincerely believe that that's almost like, to me, the CFL is like a big, beautiful jigsaw puzzle, and we just got that one missing piece.
You're right. There's a lot of fans out there.
Maybe two missing pieces without Quebec City, because Quebec City, football is so huge in Quebec now. I really think they could support a team, but Atlantic Canada would be amazing to get that fan base in on it. I think their passion would be almost equal to like a Rough Rider Nation passion. I think that would be pretty awesome.
This has been segment 1 of Across the West. The book is number 2. One of the many things I like about you, Jay, is that you're a big Martin Short guy.
Yeah,
I love Martin Short. On the back of this book, we have a quote from Martin Short that says, "Of all the Canadians I have worked with in Hollywood, Jay Onrait is definitely one of them." And that's just classic Martin Short.
I'll take it.
We'll be back with Jay momentarily. This is Grey Cup Game Plan here on Shaw TV. This is Across the West here on Grey Cup Game Plan. Once again, joined by the one and only Jay Onrait. Jay, thank you very much for joining us once again.
Thanks, Mike.
Our next CFL hot topic is when weather was a huge factor in a game. So mostly the Grey Cup we're talking about, but really any CFL game. There's a few of them. The Snow Bowl. Do you remember that? 96? Toronto, Edmonton?
And I was working at TSN at the time. I was going to Ryerson in Toronto Broadcasting School, and I was lucky enough to be working for TSN as a behind-the-scenes writer. And we watched that game in the newsroom, and that was the Eddie Brown catch where he caught it off his foot. And I'll never forget Chris Cuthbert's call of that game. That was, to me, the greatest CFL catch I'd ever seen ever, and maybe still to this day is.
Right.
But it's sort of funny because there's a romanticism to that style of Grey Cup versus, say, something that's played at BC Place in Vancouver or Skydome in Toronto, where the conditions, I prefer the outdoor Grey Cups like we're going to get at Winnipeg Stadium. What do they call it? Not Winnipeg
Investors
Stadium.
Group Field.
Yeah, whatever. It's Winnipeg Stadium. So at Investors Group Field, we're going to get that. Now, we got to roll the dice, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's Winnipeg. It's November. It could potentially be super cold, though it's beautiful right now. But I love, to me, that's football. That's the way football is meant to be played, in the elements. I think the atmosphere is so much better. You get bundled up. You have a nice thermos full of hot chocolate, maybe some booze in there, Mike.
Right. Maybe some Baileys.
Maybe some Baileys with your coffee or what have you.
But
and it's
those elements,
fun.
it's like that's a great slice of Canadian.
Absolutely,
right?
And it's part of the game.
And
it's part of the competition. Both teams are dealing with it.
Right.
So it's a level playing field, so to speak. And I prefer an outdoor game in a Grey Cup.
Toronto ended up winning that game, and I remember before the actual game itself, a lot of people were doubting Doug Flutie, whether he could play in that weather.
Right.
So that was like the ultimate victory for him, too.
I mean, I think those of us who watched Doug Flutie play, realize you should never have ever doubted him. Probably the greatest CFL player of all time. Yeah. When it really comes down to it.
Okay, let's continue the conversation now out in Saskatoon with Simon Hyatt and Dave Thomas. Guys? Absolutely. There was the Ice Bowl in 1977. That was the 65th Grey Cup, Montreal versus Edmonton. To battle the ice on the field, they put staples on the bottom of their shoes.
I remember that. And then soon after that was like deemed illegal, I believe. But I love, the ingenuity. I think it was the Alouettes who did it. I don't know if was it the Alouettes who did it?
Yeah, it was the Alouettes.
Right?
Yes, that's right.
So they did it, and they ended up winning, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's just so funny how they
asterisks.
They MacGyvered it. I don't think there should be an asterisk though, because they were smart enough to, it's like the Patriots. Everyone gets on the Patriots for bending the rules, but at the same time,
I'm a Patriots fan.
Come on.
With you.
I mean, they're smart enough to do it, and if they get away with it, they get away with it, I say.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Mud Bowl in 1950, that was at Varsity Stadium. That was a
I remember
mess.
it well, Mike.
You were, 20, 30 years old then?
I've aged well.
And Fog Bowl. I mean, imagine being in the crowd for the Fog Bowl when you can't even see the play.
Yeah, that to me, it's not as exciting as a snow-filled stadium.
Can I get a refund? Maybe?
Yeah, maybe that one we don't want to think back and reflect on too much. But yeah, I'm really curious to see what kind of a day we get for the Grey Cup. And one of the great things about living in the United States now is that ESPN2 broadcasts the Grey Cup.
There you go.
They pick up TSN's feed.
Yeah.
So last year I got to watch it in Palm Springs, of all places. I'm watching the Grey Cup there. It was just bizarre.
It's a different experience.
Yeah, really weird, But at the same time, all the snowbirds who go down there, right? So it was like there was a bar full of Canadians watching the Grey Cup in Palm Springs. It was great.
Even American, diehard football fans, they love the CFL.
Yeah,
right?
It's a different game. It's not what they're used to. Everyone on our crew at Fox loves asking me questions about it. The style, the game, and stuff. We used to have Donovan McNabb on our football panel, and I keep trying to convince him to continue his career up here. I'm like, you could still sling it. You could do it, and you could run. He was a running quarterback. Perfect league for him. He's not going to do it, Mike. He's not interested. He's not interested.
This has been Across the West here on Grey Cup Game Plan. We're going to head into a little thing called Grey Cup Memories, and you know who we got for this one?
Who?
Your former coworker, Holly Horton.
Oh,
anything you want to say to Holly?
What a wonderful broadcaster Holly
She is.
Yeah, terrific Scarborough girl.
Scarborough girl,
Yeah,
Scarborough, Ontario. Thank you, Jay, very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
2009 Grey Cup, Saskatchewan versus Montreal. Too many men on the field. Now, from a professional standpoint, I had already known about Rider Nation, but from a personal standpoint, my husband briefly played for the Riders. He grew up in Saskatchewan. His entire family still lives there. I swear I could feel the heart of a whole province being ripped from its chest. The Owls, on a second chance field goal, win it 28-27.